Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland, so welcome back to my channel, and this video is a plea to allow self-driving vehicles immediately. They ought to be authorised, well really, all across the world, but I'm sitting here in the United Kingdom. So if you're in the UK or a bit perspicacious, you'll see that this will be the solution to all our problems. If you're abroad and been following the news in the United Kingdom, you'll realise why this issue is more pressing than ever before. Because for about a fortnight, that's 2 weeks in American money, the UK suffered an acute shortage of petrol or gasoline, if you speak American English. And that's really because there weren't enough drivers to drive these tanker trucks around delivering petroleum to filling stations all across the UK. The problem was especially severe in southern England, the London area more than, say, southwest England. So it's a problem that's been coming to a head for some time. These petrol stations, they've got these underground fuel tanks, and those are fairly low. Those could take a few truckloads, but they need to be refilled. The whole petrol station needs a delivery every couple of days to maintain that level. There was the Petrol Retailers Association, as in those who run petrol stations, were saying the situation was dire. Now, there are about 8,000 filling stations in the United Kingdom. Petrol Retailers Association represents 5,500 of them. Almost. Anyway, so there was some panic buying, people hearing, some petrol stations are out of petrol, so even if somebody's tank was largely full, going and filling up that one, somebody has two cars, making sure that both of them are full, so that they wouldn't be caught short. The other thing is we've been going back to work. I mean, virtually everybody's back at work in person now, because the coronavirus crisis largely passed. Some days as few as 50 people die. Other days I've seen 168 people die, and we've just got used to it. This is the new normal. We just shrugged it off and just carrying on, because we've double vaccinated. It's something like 80% of the population. And now they're vaccinating people as young as 15. So people are driving more than they used to be driving, and it's putting more people back onto public transport, the buses, the trains, the trams, even the boats, because there wasn't enough petrol in certain areas. Other people can cycle to work or even walk to work. There are several factors behind the shortage of drivers for these tanker trucks. One is obviously Brexit, because prior to Brexit, people from any country in the European Union had the right to live and work in the United Kingdom without filling out a single form. So plenty tanker drivers from other EU member states working in the UK, some of whom had an established residency here. Because if you're an EU citizen already in the UK prior to January 2020, it was quite easy to regularise your status and say, I'm here permanently. Even when Brexit happens, you're allowed to stay forever. But some people didn't do that, and they're regularly coming back and forth between France and the UK, Poland and the United Kingdom, Romania and the United Kingdom, and some people didn't do that, didn't wish to. So therefore the government offered an additional 5,000 temporary work visas for 5,000, so for drivers of heavy goods vehicles, HGVs, and including 300 immediate ones for those who drive tankers. But only 127 people from the European Union took this up. And the British government was having to authorise soldiers, members of the Royal Air Force and so on to drive these trucks, only about 100 of them delivering fuel to forecourts in the areas which were severely impacted by the shortage of drivers. But anyway, this comes on to my solution, and my solution, not just for this but for broader problems, is to authorise self-driving trucks. They've been around for over 10 years. To legalise them and say you can use these autopiloted trucks to drive things all around the UK, deliver petrol, whatever it is, food to supermarkets and so forth, because self-driving trucks have existed for over 10 years. I saw in a documentary how a convoy of them drove all the way across Sweden. So this had been happening 10 years ago. And the technology has been refined since, so allow it now. Why not? Because it's better than any human. When there's a crash, it's almost invariably human error. Okay, these self-driving vehicles are better than people because they don't get tired, they don't get drunk, and they don't lose concentration. They cannot break the speed limit, and they have no desire to break the speed limit. And what else? They don't get emotional. So they're safer than human beings. Presumably there will occasionally be a crash, but I would guess less frequently than when human beings crash. So do it, and we'd solve that problem right now. Thing is, the UK's got too many jobs going and not enough people applying for them. The job vacancies, so unemployment's very low. That's why the UK government say we're going to cut unemployment benefit. The jobs we had, take them. And if you don't take those jobs, well, tough. You're not going to live this life of state-subsidised idleness. Anyway, so various trades unions in the United Kingdom said there are certain key workers who need to go to work in person, and they ought to be prioritised in getting fuel when there's this paucity of petrol. The BMA, that's the British Medical Association, says doctors ought to get it. Or one of the teachers' trades unions, NASUWT, I don't know how you pronounce it, NASUWT, says that teachers need to be there in person, and for some of them public transport is just not practical if you live deep in the countryside. But the situation's improved a little bit. Some petrol stations saying you could only buy £30 worth of petrol. But remember, it depends on the size of your car. That's absolutely fine if you got a tiny one, like a smart car, but large cars, that wouldn't fill the tank. Now, those with electric vehicles are driving by saying, look at me, I can just charge up at home. So we've got to move to electric vehicles. The problem was electric vehicles, when they invented them, charging that battery could take up to 12 hours. So if you get home and you can charge it overnight. Now, I'm told that some batteries can charge in only 3 hours, but that's sort of a separate issue. But we could have all buses being self-driving, and just think within 10 years we could easily have not a single taxi driver or train driver either, or pilot of a helicopter, a ship, or indeed a plane. And I spent some time in the United Arab Emirates, where the trains were entirely self-driving. In London, there's the Docklands Light Railway, DLR, that opened 25 years ago. It's always been self-driving. So why not do that? Why not the London Underground, or the Tube as it's commonly called, and all trains? Because, it's safer, as well as it's faster, it's cheaper. Now, I wouldn't sack these train drivers to say, you're guaranteed a job, but not the same salary. We need platform staff, we need guards. Now, they wouldn't want that. They think they've got London by the short and curlies, and will try and paralyse the city by going on strike. And I've seen it happen before. Pretend it's about passenger safety, when really it's about feathering their nests. All right, they'll never be so well paid again, so I don't blame them for fighting to keep these rather lucrative jobs for pressing stop and go. Okay, there's perhaps a bit more to it than that. So the UK needs something like an estimated another 100,000 heavy goods vehicle drivers. And obviously, so you can send little vans around with ordinary drivers without an HGV license, but that's less efficient, and that's actually more fuel, because it's more efficient to have one massive truck than several small ones to deliver that load. And obviously costs more, because you have to have several drivers, not just one. So we could resolve these problems instantly, as I say. And which airline is going to be bold enough to say, we don't have pilots, itself a flying plane? Would you get onto a plane knowing there was no pilot? One day you will. It seems scary now, frightens me a bit. But being too emotional about it, in the rational part of my mind, I actually know it's safe and that it seems it's wrong. And even if there was a pilot, it doesn't need to be on the plane, it could be remote controlling it. I remember I knew a guy who's a British Airways pilot, said he was flying in the 90s, and said, the pilot takes off and lands, otherwise the autopilot does it. And there are other things about this, is the pilot's only there, the computer goes wrong. But if the computer breaks down, you're dead anyway, because all the controls are via the computer. So more people have gone onto public transport because there's fuel shortage in the UK. But bring on self-driving vehicles. The United Kingdom should be audacious and be the first country in the world to legalise this. I don't see why it's not been done already. It'll save us money. We're a greying society. What'll happen to all the heavy goods drivers? I don't know. Other jobs will be found for them. Toodaloo. So I'll switch it off now. Some Luddites always resist new technology.